Very nice dive. Good job. Nice pike. You might see a little twist on the end of this, but it didn't affect the judges' scores. Next diver is Timo Schmidt from Germany with a forward 1.5 somersault pike. Very nice dive, just a little bit over on the finish. To save these dives, the divers will do a somersault under the water, which will help a dive that's going over to go in straight. He was a little late on his somersault save, otherwise he could have saved that dive. Now we have Elliot Jonsson, forward 1.5 pike from Sweden. Little bit crooked on the hurdle. Facing the judges. You can see him twist there a little bit, almost off the end of the board, but he did a good job saving the dive. Not the best way to start a competition, but it's just a front 1.5 pike. We're early on. Lots of things can happen. Matthias. Front 1.5 pike. Very nice dive. 6.5 straight across the board. We call that a bingo when we're judging. Next diver is Joshua Saxton from Germany. Inward dive pike. Very deep pike on that, which is impressive, but it dives a little bit back. But a good dive. That tight pike is very impressive. Artem Orlov from Sweden, back dive in the tuck position. Oh, a little bit over on that. You notice his head was down when he reaches back for the water. It's very difficult to stop the dive. Needs to reach up, look, a little bit over. You can do your dives in a tuck position, a pike position with straight legs, or a layout position where your body's stretched out. Ruli Bollmann from Germany, an inward dive in the straight position. This is the most difficult required dive in the inward direction. Very nice dive. Little tough controlling the finish on that, and a little bit of a turn that may affect the judges' scores. That's why they go 5.5 to 7. It's a 7 top and a 5.5 entry. So now we have Marius Klaus from Switzerland, forward 1.5 pike. A little bit over the end of the board, but he did a pretty good job. You'll see his toes over the end of the board in the replay. Really moves forward, a little too much momentum over the end of the board. With a front 1.5 pike, that's not a big critical problem, but a reverse takeoff where you walk forward and spin backward, that would be devastating. Flavio Capelli, Italy. Forward 1.5 pike, very nice. Could have gone up a little bit higher, and you'll see a little bit of an arch in the back. You want to be perfectly flat on these entries. See this arch there? That's why it goes over a little bit. Next dive here is Matteo Barbieri from Italy, an inward dive in the pike position. Matteo's been diving about 9 years, and his favorite pastime is to go out with friends. That's almost a bingo. 6.5, 6, 6, 6.5, 6.5, 6.5. It's a good dive, very nice dive. If you want to compete for medals, it's important to maybe to get like 6.5, 7s on all your required dives. That puts you in a very nice position. Felix, very nice takeoff. The direction on that takeoff is very important. You see how high that dive goes. It's just very pleasing to watch. He reaches up, very nice. Beautiful dive. Next diver is Ivan Alexandrov from Netherlands, inward dive pike. Very good dive. Again, you see a little bit of an arch in the low back. Divers really want to keep a flat back when they dive in. That's when they get the best entries. Beautiful takeoff. You see that little arch there he goes over. Tried to save it underwater with a somersault save, but didn't quite pull it off. If your back is flat on the entry, that somersault save is much easier to do. Here we have Gorko Diaz de Zulueta from Spain. Inward dive pike. You see how quick he came down into the pike position. It would have been nicer if his hips had gone up a little higher. A little more fluid, but there he goes into the pike. A little hard to control when your chest comes down so fast. Fabian Rohrbach from Schweiz. Back dive in the tuck position. These dives look really, really nice if they reach up with their arms towards the ceiling. He did a good job with that. Very nice dive. A little bit back from the board, just a little bit over, but a very well controlled dive. Nice reach on the beginning. Beautiful. Could have looked back a little bit earlier, would have stopped the rotation. Timo Schmidt from Germany, back dive pike. Again, you want to reach to the ceiling. Very nice. Very nice dive. I would have liked to put his head a little bit more in the neutral position before he moves his arms to the water. You see his head's in and he goes over a little bit. Didn't really get a good look at the water before he dived in. That is the technique a lot of coaches like. Started in Russia back in the late 70s. A diver named Sergei Nemtsonov in the Olympics in 1976 in Montreal. That was Elliot Jonsson. A little bit back with the shoulders. Could have jumped up a little bit straighter. So he reached to the wall behind him instead of the ceiling. But a good dive. Very solid. Matthias. Back dive pike. He's from Spain. Good dive. Pulled over a little bit on the finish. Could have stretched a little bit more to the bottom. Looking for a vertical reach here. Very nice. Look back. Late looking back with his head. That's what pulled him over. Your head weighs about, what, 13 pounds? If you move it at the right time, it helps. If you move it at the wrong time, it doesn't help. Joshua from Great Britain. Whoa! A little too much rotation there. Hard to control on the entry. Tried to stop it, but you just can't stop it. Needs to go up a little higher. It's a beautiful pike. He just came out a little bit early. Artem Orlov from Sweden. He dives out of Malmö. A reverse dive tuck. Again, you want to see him reach to the ceiling. That was a nice reach. Could have flattened out a little bit earlier to get that entry. You want to tuck, kick your legs out, extend the hips. Oh, his legs were a little bit too high. Oh, bummer. I was doing I was doing so good. We're back live. Sorry I've been quiet for so long. I had it on mute. This is my first time here. First time commentating, even though I've been in the sport about 50 years. This is Ivan's back dive. Nice reach. Very nice dive, just a little bit short. Gorka with a reverse dive pike. He's hiding behind the 3 meter there. All right, good. He's a little bit over the end of the board. That way he's a little bit too far away, but he does a good job with the dive. Got a 7 and a 5, 5.5. The distance is a 5.5. The dive was pretty good. Fabian with an inward dive. You see, he didn't get his hips up on this dive. He's leaning back a little bit too far in the takeoff, and the dive goes too far out. Very difficult to make it. With the inward dives, you want to get the arms up over the head or by the ears when the board is pushing you up so that it rotates. Timo from Germany, inward dive straight. Again, you want this to look like an iron cross in the air. The arms at 90 degrees. In the same position he's standing there. That's a good dive. His arms were a little bit low in the set. He didn't quite get his legs up all the way, but nice straight position. Yeah, if you look down too early with the head, it kills the rotation and he won't come around. There's Elliott with an inward dive pike. Very nice dive, very nice entry. Just a little bit back. Matias from Spain, inward dive in the straight position. The more experienced divers will do it in the straight position because it gives a little bit more difficulty for your 5 required dives. Very nice dive. Arms a little low for my taste, but that was a good dive. You see a little bit low under the shoulders in the set. The required dives have a specific degree of difficulty that you can't exceed the difficulty on the required dives all added up together. But you can see different dives. This is Joshua, reverse dive pike. Good. He's quick. He's a fast diver. He can do very quick things. His technique is good. Very beautiful toe point. Pulled that dive a little bit over. Artem with a forward 1.5 somersault pike. All right. He's a little bit away from the board. Could have been a little flatter in the lineup with his body. If you look at some of these dives, you'll notice that there are 2 bubbles, big bubbles that come up on the side of the entry. We'll see if he does it here. Nice dive. Beautiful reach on the takeoff. You see those bubbles that come up on the outside of the dive? It's because underwater the diver is spreading his arms apart to get a rip entry. We call that a swim entry. Watch those bubbles come up. Oh, you can't see them there. Marius from Switzerland, inward dive pike. All right, a little bit too far away from the board to get the high scores. You want to keep your balance on the balls of your feet. Get your arms up by your ears, but not behind them. But he leaned back a little bit with his shoulders too much. This is Flavio Capelli. He likes to listen to music when he has spare time. He's been diving about 10 years. Very nice dive. You can see how quick he came out of the pike. Sometimes it's nicer if the dive is a little bit more aesthetically graceful. It's real quick there. He gets that arch at his back. It's a little hard to control the entry, but a good dive. Matteo Barbieri from Italy. Boy, he can jump. A little bit forward on the end of the board, a little bit farther away with the dive, but he jumps up there. Woo! Good. He's been diving about 9 years. His favorite pastime is to go out with friends and hang out. Felix Wheeler. He's been diving about 10 years from Great Britain. Inward dive pike. Very nice dive. Might see a little twist on the end of that, but it's inconsequential. The judges can't pick that up from the sides. Ivan from the Netherlands, reverse dive. Nice reach on the takeoff. Just a little bit short on the entry. Ivan's learning Dutch. He must have just moved to the Netherlands. He can understand 5 languages. I have Gorka. Back somersault with 1.5 twists. So he does some of the easier required dives, and this adds his DD, so it's a little bit more difficult. See, he's a little bit loose on the entry, a little bit over twist. Fabian from Switzerland. back 1.5 with 1.5 with a half twist. He needs a good push on this takeoff. That's good. It's a difficult dive. You've got to get a very good takeoff. A lot of rotation on the beginning with a good arm swing. And then lift your legs now. Yeah. Fabian likes to do a lot of other stuff. Alpine skiing, cross-country skiing, sports in general. Especially ice hockey. Timo from Germany. Forward 1.5 for the full twist. That's the first one of those we've seen. He could have reached up a little bit more in the beginning, go a little higher. But nice technique. Good dive. Elliot from Sweden. Forward 1.5 with the full twist. Same dive. Oh. Elliot can go a little bit higher. He's a little quick off the board, but it's nice technique, very fast twist. And a little bit over on the entry. Mateus likes to do video games and cook in his spare time. That was a nice takeoff. You see the reach up on the beginning, it's really good, but a deeper pike on the end would have finished this dive off nicely. Deep pike here. Needed a little more kick with his legs up to vertical to get the rotation. But what a nice reach. Joshua. He's been diving for 5 years. Very nice dive. A little bit short. Could have rode the board a little bit more. He's real quick. He pushes, uses his legs. But it's a nice dive. Very nice dive. A little bit short. Artem from Sweden doing the same dive. You can see Artem is leaning forward a little bit too much on the beginning. That takes him away from the board a little bit too far away. There he's leaning forward. Nice technique. Pretty much straight up and down, just a little bit over on the entry. It's Rudy from Germany. Same dive. That's done very well. Again, you see the nice vertical reach on the takeoff. Lets him go way up in the air. Little deeper bite. Look at that water. Just a little under reach. What I mean under reach is his arms went, instead of over his head towards the bottom of the pool, they go a little bit towards the wall under the diving board. All right, nice dive for Marius. He could reach up a little bit more. So his arms were in front of his eyes, so he didn't get quite as high. Flavio Capelli from Italy. He's been diving about 10 years. Pretty good dive. Very nice. Can you imagine they're 15 years old. He's been diving for 10 years. He started at 5 years old. Doing this a long time. When you love the sport, you love the sport. Sometimes that's all you want to do. Mateo, back 1.5 for the half twist. You see how he got a lot of rotation on here. Gets into the deep pike twist. Pike. That's done very well. Just lost a little bit on the entry with an arch in his back. But that's a lot of rotation to stop in a short amount of time. Very impressive takeoff. Felix, reverse 1.5 for the half twist. He's going to... All right, so this is the same dive as we saw with the back 1.5, but with a hurdle. You want to reach up towards the ceiling, ride the board, a good dive. Ivan Alexandrov from the Netherlands, back 1.5 with a half twist. All right, could have swung through a little bit more in the beginning to get a little more rotation. You see, he doesn't quite get around to it. That's the difficulty with this dive. Deep pike there. So after the requireds, we have 3 Germans in the top. And then Italy, Spain, Italy, Great Britain, Sweden, Netherlands. Rudy, who reaches so high in his takeoffs, you can tell the difference. He's a little bigger compared to a lot of these kids in the competition. He can dive a little bit more like an older A grouper between 16 and 18. So a lot of these younger boys will grow up and catch up with the height. But right now, Rudy's got a bit of an advantage. Gorka, an inward 1.5, inward 2.5 somersault tuck. This is a difficult, no, forward 2.5 tuck. Reach up. That's a good dive. If he'd have reached up a little more in the beginning, he might have controlled the entry. Kick. Yeah, he had his head down on the entry, so when he kicked, he really didn't see the water. When you kick your legs out, you want to see the water and then dive to the bottom. Same dive. He could have kicked out a little bit more with his legs. They were a little bent when he reaches for the water. That's a bit of a deduction. So you want to kick your legs first on your spinners. Timo with a forward 2.5 pike. A very good dive. Could have been a little bit closer, but a nice job. If he reaches up a little bit more on the takeoff. Nice tight pike. Very good dive. Shh. We've got some excited girls in the office here. Elliot. Inward 1.5 pike. It's a good dive. You can see he's got his head down on the takeoff, and that pushes his hips back, so he didn't quite get a good takeoff. You can see it move away, and it ends up a bit short. Mateus from Spain, forward 1.5 with 2 twists in the free position. They call it free because they go from a pike to a layout to a pike. So they're free to do what they want to do. Of course, you want to keep the legs straight. That was a double twister. He needed a little bit more somersault at the beginning and bring his left arm up over his head on the finish. And a little deeper pike in the end if he wanted to make that. Joshua from Great Britain, a forward 2.5 somersault tuck. Very nice dive for a young lad that's been only diving for 5 years. He does got some very nice technique. Very good dive. When he gets a little bit older, he's going to jump a little bit higher, quite a bit higher. Artem with a back 1.5 tuck. Nice dive, Artem. He's got his head in a little bit on the entry, so his legs kick over. Pretty good reach on the takeoff. Kicks first, looks. A little kick over on the finish. Rudy. That's good. Now, if you watch this takeoff, his legs buckled a little bit, and that threw him off a little bit. Sometimes you don't feel like you're going to make it, so you give a little bit extra. So that's a miss for Rudy, but he's quite a bit ahead, so he's got some room to spare. Marius forward 2.5 tuck. So he was a little quick off the board. You want to hold your arms up in that hurdle. Hold them up, and then swing deep, reach up. He kicked out a little bit late. A little too much rotation. Here's Flavio doing a back 1.5 with 1.5 twist. This is the one, it's a difficult dive for kids at this age to be able to do the 1.5 twist and 1.5 somersault when they only have 1 meter off the diving board. He's got to get his arms through with a good push. Very good dive, he's strong. Could have been a little closer, but that's a really good dive for this guy. Mateo doing the same dive, back 1.5 somersault with 1.5 twists. Like I say, you got to get your arms through first with a good push. Very nice. What a beautiful twist. You see how fast that twist goes. Looks like a spinning top. Woof. Good. Could have pointed his toes. Practice a little more to refine that dive, but that was a good takeoff. Felix, near 1.5 pike. Wants to get his arms up by his ears on the takeoff with a good push through the toes. Nice dive, very nice dive. Could have stayed in the pike just a little bit longer. That was a good dive. Yvonne from Netherlands, forward 2.5 tuck. Good. Nice tuck, fast spin, but he had his head down a little bit too much on the entry. You need to look at the water if you want to get a good entry. Gorka from Spain, back 1.5 tuck. He wants to get a good reach. A little bit past that light over his head, then lift his knees. Good dive, just a little bit short. Back 1.5 tuck. Generally, you want to kick out about, if you look at a clock, about 2 o'clock. Then straighten your body out, look at the water, and reach back. Yeah. He kicked about 1. A little bit over on the finish. Timo from Germany, doing a very difficult dive for someone in this age group, an inward 2.5 somersaults tuck. He's a strong lad, he's got strong legs, perfectly built for diving. See, that's a big dive for him. Come out a little bit early, but he's going to do this in the future very well. That was a little bit tight. You can see his coach in the background in the orange shirt kind of lean back. Elliot, forward 2.5 somersaults pike. All right, this is the dive he's working on. He had a very good hurdle. Nice, way up in the air. A little tighter pike at the beginning and hang in there a little bit longer. Let it come around. Matthias, back 1.5 somersaults in the pike position. This is the first one we've seen in the pike, if I'm correct. He's got to reach through with his arms and get his legs up straight. into a deep pike. That's very good, but if you let go at 4 o'clock, if your legs are below horizontal, it's very difficult to do this. Nice takeoff, see him let go early. Then when he reaches for the arms, the legs just drop back. Nothing happens. That's too bad. Joshua, back 1.5 with a half twist. Good dive. Could have gotten his legs up a little bit more on the finish. That's what's difficult about this dive, because you got to bend over and then you've got to lift your legs. Artem, a reverse 1.5 somersaults tuck from Sweden. Nice reach. Good direction. Keeps his head in a little bit too much in the end, and it's very difficult to get a good entry. So you see when he threw his arms back, it pulled him over. Probably felt like he wasn't going to make it. Now we have Rudy. Oops. Oops. Boy, his lead is shrinking. You notice he's way back in the diving board. He hurdles backward. Boy, to do a 2.5 tuck pike from there is difficult. Almost pulled it off. Can't make a mistake on the hurdle like that and get away with it too often. Marius from Sweden, or from Switzerland, back 1.5 tuck. It's a good dive, just a bit short. A little more push on the takeoff. Tight tuck. Flavio, forward 2.5 somersaults in the pike position. Very nice. It's important to be on the end of the board for a 2.5 pike. You can see he's right on the end, leaning forward a little bit, but he reaches up. His head's in a good position. A little bit tighter in the core, in the stomach muscles on the entry would have been better, but that was a good dive. Matteo from Italy, same dive. Very nice. In his hurdle, you can see him jump back a little bit so his feet don't quite get to the end. But he does a good dive with that. A little bit over, but very nice. Felix, back 1.5 pike. Yeah, he could have got his legs up a little bit faster, let go a little bit higher. You see, end up a little bit short. Short of rotation. Ivan from the Netherlands, Imre 1.5 pike. He likes to stand with his arms a little bit behind his shoulders. Yeah, pretty good dive. He stayed in the pike a little bit too long, and he tried to get in straight, but ended up a little bit over. When you come around on the Imre 1.5, you want to spot the water so that you can go in straight. If you miss that spot, it's hard to line up. Gorka, reverse 1.5 tuck. Walking forward and then reversing direction. Very nice dive. Good technique, a little bit loose in the core, in the stomach muscles. A little bit too much arch on the entry. Fabian, same dive. Oh boy. You see, this is where it's a problem. When your toes are over the end of the board, you just can't do this dive. He needs to lift his knee up, but he didn't. He's over the end. He's in trouble. Oh. You just hate that takeoff as a diver. You know that your goose is cooked. Timo from Germany at back 1.5 pike. You let go a little bit high, about 1 o'clock. When you do that, it's hard to stop it. Nice, powerful takeoff. Good takeoff. You just lifted those legs up a little high. Like I say, you want to let go between, 2 o'clock. Elliott, back 1.5 pike, same dive. Beautiful position, beautiful extension on the come out. Just a little bit away from the board, but this is a good dive. When that dive is a little bit closer, you can get a better entry. So Elliott scored 6s on that, which is really, looks like 6s. If you have all your dives for 6s, you're going to be in pretty good shape, I think. Mateus with an inward 1.5 pike. That dive was a little bit tight to the board. The judges might take off for that. He had a little bit of a twist on the end. A lot of potential there, but you see how close he is here? That's a bit scary. You don't want to watch that. Coaches in the background will disappear. Scary. You want to keep your head up and reach up to your ears on an inward. Well, they gave him 5s on it anyway. I guess the judges didn't discount for being close. All right. Joshua gave it a good effort. He's only been diving for 5 years. He's got a lot to learn, but a lot of potential. Kicks a little bit too high and then pulls. I'm not going to make it, so I got to pull. Artem with the inward 1.5 somersault tuck. Again, we want to get the hands, arms up by the ears, and then push through the toes. Keep the head steady. Nice job, Artem. A little hard to control that entry, but he was spinning. Here's Rudy, inward 1.5 pike. Rudy's only about 8 points ahead right now, so he's still got some room. Let's see if he does a good dive. Okay, I thought he might do that a little bit better. You can see he's a little bit too far away from the board and didn't come around all the way. 5.5s and 6s on the dive. The last round will be interesting. Marius, inward 1.5 in the tuck position. All right, again, he pushed away from the board too. Sometimes when we're doing these dives, we try too hard and we don't let the board do the work for us. So he left the board a little bit early, ends up too far back and short on the dive. Flavio, back 1.5 pike. Good. Nice dive, a little bit over. Now you see him spread his arms out wide on the takeoff right here. Spreads them out wide. That's a technique that we use to pick the legs up. But it creates a lot of spin, and he had a little trouble controlling it. Mateo, back 1.5 pike. Very nice takeoff, but too much arch on the end. He's still working on this dive, obviously. A couple hundred more and it'll do real good. He's got a great takeoff, very nice high in the air, but he lost it on the entry. Very nice dive for Felix. He had a very nice takeoff. He got his legs up. Good jump. Nice and high. Let go a little bit early, but it worked out for him. That should go 6s. Ivan with a back 1.5 tuck. Very nice dive. You see the connection on the takeoff. When he brings his knees up, his chest moves a little bit towards his legs to get into a nice tuck. So at the end of 8 rounds, Rudy's still ahead, but his lead has gone down to 8 points. Timo's in second from Germany. His teammates chasing, and Flavio is 298. So those 3 are in the running. Felix could definitely pull up. He's at 294. Mateo, 272. He's a little bit too far out, but not too far away from getting a medal. But that's a lot of points. So we have the top 4 in the running for the medals. Mateo could pull himself up to a medal position if one of the other boys miss a dive or doesn't do so well. Gorka, Immer 1.5 somersaults tuck. All right. You see his chest was a little bit back on the takeoff. Looks like it cut it off a little bit there. But a good job piking out straight up and down. Totally respectable. Fabian for his final dive, an Immer 1.5 somersault in the tuck position. He did pretty much the same thing, but he didn't have quite the power on the takeoff. You see the chest is a little bit too far back. The diving board can't help him too much. And he kicks out early. Timo from Germany, back 1.5 with 1.5 twists. This must be his favorite dive. He's putting it last. I would expect that he's going to do a pretty good one. He's strong. He can make this dive no problem. Good push, but you'll see his angle of trajectory is a little bit too much towards the scoreboard, and it's hard to stop it. He needed to reach up a little bit more towards the ceiling. When you've got legs that can push like him, you want to reach up. Let the board work for you. Elliott, a reverse 1.5 somersault pike. This is a relatively new dive for him. I've seen him do it great. I've seen him miss it. Yep. Great takeoff. He didn't quite get to the end of the board, but it's a new one for him, so he's given a shot. He went after it, that's for sure. Too much pull. He let his legs go at the right time. He should have just floated out of that. Looked and reached. Mateus doing a forward 2.5 somersault pike for his final dive. Okay. Oh. You'll see him miss the board a little bit. He's got that left leg behind his right leg when he comes down. He's going to start panicking here on the side of the board. Let go early. It's hard to get enough rotation when you start panicking on the takeoff. Joshua from Great Britain. Immer 1.5 somersaults tuck. Very nice dive. Could have gone a little higher, but that'll come. Could have used the board just a little bit more, but nice pike out. When they come out with their legs straight, like in a pike position, we call that a pike out. Piksträckning in Swedish. Artem, forward 2.5 somersaults in the tuck for his final dive. Very nice dive. You can see he's in a good position on the end of the board. Body's in alignment. Reaches up pretty good. He pikes out of that. Just didn't reach back for the water and aim towards the bottom. Rudy's in the lead by 8 points. If he does a really good reverse, ooh, it's a reverse 2.5. That's a big dive for these guys. And when they can pull it off, it's a great dive to score with. 4.5s on that dive, but he had a lot of DD. That's a much more degree of difficulty, which we multiply by the judges' scores. So he got a few points on that. So he's still leading, 347. Okay, Marius with a forward 1.5 with 2 twists. We have 2 divers left that could catch Rudy. Flavio is 48 points behind, and Felix is 52 points behind. So here's Flavio. He needs 48 points on this inward 1.5 pike. He's going to have to score 7.5, 7.5. If my math is right. He might get it. Who knows? 50 points. He moves into the lead. Flavio pulled it off. Those 2 dives that Rudy missed cost him dearly. Mateo, inward 1.5 somersault pike. For his final dive. Very nice dive. Just a little bit away from the board. Ideally, you want it a little bit closer. But he does a good reach on the takeoff. Very nice dive. Pikes out beautifully. Nice entry. So Felix moved up to 4th place. We'll see. Oh, Felix Wheeler, come on, man. Pull it off. All right, Felix. Felix needed 54 points to move into the lead. 44. Not quite. Ivan for his last dive is a reverse 1.5 somersault tuck. Very nice dive. Good technique, a nice entry. All right, that concludes this event. Our winners, Flavio, 349. Rudy, 347. It was close. Timo from Germany, 339. Felix just missed 3rd place with 338. He was out by less than a point. Matteo in 5th from Italy, 320. Ivan ended up with 295. Joshua, 292. Elliot, 279. Mateus, 278. Gorka, 275. Marius, 271. Artem, 268. And Fabian, 251. All right, thank you very much for watching. Remember to subscribe to the channel, become a member, support Swedish diving, support diving in general. All of our contests are videoed and free to watch over and over again. Thank you very much.